Well, hello everyone. Glad that you're tuning in again. Lesson number 11, God helping his people. And so this is still kind of going along a theme of obedience. You know, that God expects his people to obey him. And in this lesson, there's a point made about keeping promises. Even when they're hard to keep, we still have to keep promises. And so, thinking about our memory verse, now this memory verse isn't that long, and I'm hoping that you're reviewing that. Remember, in those days there was no king in Israel, and every man did what he thought was right. Judges 17 and verse 6. And so, Mr. Ben, I'm wondering here if everyone remembers the cycle we've been talking about. You know, the children of Israel continued to go through a cycle, and it seems as though that the children of Israel would forget what God did for them, and then they would turn and they would fall back into sin.
Yeah, you know, we have a diagram of the cycle here, Mr. Joe, and I'm thinking that it may be hard to see because of the lighting, because we're outside here, but, and I've got a giant bug flying around my face right now.
It might get real exciting here.
But just remember this circle, which was a cycle of what the Israelites would go through. And just to quickly summarize, the people would be faithful to God and everything would be going well. But then they would turn away from God, and God would have to punish them to try and bring them back to Him, which would work because the people would cry out to God, ask for His help. He would raise up a judge who would deliver them, and then they would be faithful to God once again. And that cycle repeated for about 400 years, Mr. Joe, throughout the book of Judges.
That's right. 15 judges would be appointed through those years. And so you have to wonder a little bit, and you have to question, you know, why did the Israelites turn from God? Well, they were tempted to follow the gods, the false gods of the people around them, the nations around them. And worshiping idols is not the same as worshiping our God, the God who has made and created all things. And so whenever the children of Israel would turn and start worshiping idols, it would make God very sad. It would upset him. And he would just let the people go. And when they got far enough away from God where there was no blessings and things would get rough for them, and then they would realize this is not good, they would cry out to God. They would repent. And when God sent them a judge, and they would come back.
Yeah, whenever they would turn into sin, you know, God would make efforts to try to reach them, and he would try to get them to come back to him. But when they persisted and they didn't listen and they would forsake God, God would allow an enemy to come and to punish them because of the sin that they had committed. And, you know, that broke God's heart to do that. It's not what he wanted to do, but it's what he had to do in order to teach the people a lesson.
Well, and to think too, just a moment here about sin. I mean, what is sin? I mean, whenever we go against what God says, well, that is sin. And that always disappoints God if we sin.
But God is patient with us. And he was patient with the Israelites too. God knows that we're going to make mistakes. He knows that from time to time we're going to fall and we're going to stumble. But if our hearts are what they should be, and we return to him and we ask for his forgiveness, we can rest assured that God will give us that forgiveness because he's promised that to us.
That's right. And so when God would punish the children of Israel, it was not because he didn't love them.
Right.
It was because he did love them.
That's right.
And he was disciplining them so that they would see what they've done wrong and they would come back.
That's right. And they too had, just like we do, the promises of God's forgiveness. But you know, while we're thinking about promises, Mr. Joe, let's skip ahead to this next story.
Boy.
This is a really interesting story about one of the judges of Israel.
So we are introduced to another judge. Okay, his name is Jephthah. And God raised him up to, again, deliver the children of Israel and to you know, help bring them back closer to him. Well, there was a battle going on with the Ammonites, and that's sort of what prompted all of this. and Jephthah being the judge and everything.
And Jephthah was the 9th judge, right?
Yes, that's right.
Out
He
of
was
the
ninth.
15, he was number 9.
Yes,
Okay.
that's right. I don't think that we will remember all of these judges because we're not talking about all of them.
That's right.
But we talked some about Othniel and Ehud, and Shamgar was that real quick
we skipped
judge.
Shamgar.
Yeah. And Deborah. Now, we talked about Deborah last week.
Deborah
and
Gideon, and now
right.
Jephthah.
That's right. But there was Abimelech, Tola, and Jair, who kind of fell in between there. Now, we haven't talked about them.
Not much said about them.
No,
Very
there's
small
not.
portions of Scripture.
But now with Jephthah, there was a little bit more to that. Because Jephthah, first he tried to make peace with the Ammonites, and he reminded them how, God always helps the children of Israel. You really don't want to go to battle with us, because God will be on our side. And then, he tried to help them understand that they really needed to do what was right and to go away because God would help them.
Yeah, but the Ammonites, they said, we don't care. We're not going to listen to what you're saying.
Because we're strong.
That's right. So they didn't listen to Jephthah and his warnings about how God would help the Israelites. So Jephthah asked God to bless him and to bless the Israelite army as they would go and fight against the Ammonites.
Well, that's a good thing.
That's right. So Jephthah told the Lord, he said, God, I'm going to make a promise to you. He said, Lord, if you will give us the victory over the Ammonites, then I will make a sacrifice to you when I get home. Now, that sounds like a pretty good thing, right?
Well, now, wait a minute. Is he like trying to make a deal with God?
It kind of sounds like that. So he says, God, if you'll let us win the victory over the Ammonites, when I get home, the first thing that comes out of my house to greet me, I'm going to give to you as a burnt offering.
Oh, wow.
Now, surely Jephthah thought that when he would arrive home that maybe a lamb would
or
come
a
out, or
goat,
maybe a goat or a bull or something.
Yeah.
But what happened was, and this is where the story really gets interesting, when Jephthah came home, and remember, he's made a promise.
He made a promise to
He
God.
made a promise to God, and so he has to keep his word. When he came home, the first thing that came out to meet him, Mr. Joe, it was not a lamb.
Oh.
It was not a goat. It was his daughter.
What? No.
It was his own daughter who came out to greet him. And don't you know that Jephthah was grieving when he saw that, because he thought about the promise or the vow that he had made to God.
Oh, it's making me think that when we make promises, when we make vows, that we better think about that very carefully.
That's right. We need to be very careful when we make promises, because we don't want to make promises that are too great or too large. We don't want to overstate the promise, because when we make a promise, even to another person, not even just with God, but even to another person, God hears the promise that we've made.
That's right.
God knows the vow that we made with that other person. And if we don't keep up our end of the bargain, then God will hold us accountable for that.
Okay, and I have another question here. So, like when there's something really important that we have to face, should we try to make a deal with God so that it goes our way?
I think from this story, we learn no, we shouldn't do that, because that can backfire and go the wrong way, like it did with Jephthah.
Oh, wow.
So God doesn't want us to make these kinds of promises. God wants us to make a decision to live for Him, to obey Him, to follow His word and do His will. But we don't have to make deals with God in order to receive God's blessings. We don't have to say, okay, God, I tell you what, if you'll give me all of my favorite toys, then I'll obey my parents. Or God, maybe when we get a little bit older, if you'll give me a job that pays me lots and lots of money, then I'll serve you, God. No, see, we can't manipulate God like that.
No.
God doesn't work like that, and we don't need to make those kinds of promises.
I don't think God makes deals.
That's right. That's right. So when we make a vow or a promise to God, we better think seriously about what it is that we've said to Him, and we better make sure that we follow through with it.
Boy, that's right. So we need to think through our promises.
Think about how sad Jephthah would have been after he makes this vow that he will sacrifice as a burnt offering whatever comes out of his house. and his own child comes out of his house. How difficult that must have been for him.
Yeah. Boy, that's a difficult story. That's a sad story. So from the judge Jephthah, we learn, I think, a valuable lesson here about being careful about our promises and our vows and what we vow for, and that we can't make a deal with God. He's not in the business of making deals with us. He just expects us to listen to his word and to obey what he says. And if we do that, well, then he'll be on our side.
That's right. Now, the judges, through Jephthah, led by Jephthah, were fighting against the Ammonites, and they were victorious in their battle.
Yeah.
But you know what? It wasn't just the Ammonites that they were fighting. They even started fighting amongst themselves.
Well, I mean, here's another story. And it kind of comes from Judges chapter 12. You're exactly right. There was another battle that took place. It wasn't with the Midianites. It wasn't with the Ammonites. It was with some of the other children of Israel.
With the Israelites, yeah.
It's like they were fighting their brothers. Okay, so it's like Ephraim. If you remember here on the map, Ephraim, I got it right? Yeah, that Ephraim right there. See, they're on the west side of the River Jordan, okay? Well, they were fighting against, what Scripture says, they're fighting against Gilead. And so if you try to look on the map, where's Gilead at? No. Gilead at this point in history was kind of a broad reference to those living on the east side of the river.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And so, well, when Ephraim had gone to battle against the Ammonites, now the way I understand this, some of those over here on this side in Gilead, these children of Israel, they were kind of upset. I mean, as I understand, they were upset that they didn't get called to come and help.
Yeah, the Ephraimites said to Jephthah, "Why didn't you call us? You took the men of Gilead to go fight the Ammonites, and you didn't even let us know. Why did you not do that?" And you, Mr. Joe, they got so upset about that they started threatening to fight against Jephthah and the other Israelites.
Okay. Well, you know what? It was quite a battle.
It was.
There was a lot of people killed.
Many people killed. And this was a civil war, we would say.
Yeah, because it was within the nation of the children of Israel. Now, you know what? There was actually 42,000 Ephraimites killed.
Oh, wow.
42,000?
That's a big number.
Yes.
Wow.
I mean, wow. That's just incredible. And so I can only imagine how disappointed God was to see those of his chosen people fighting against each other.
Yeah, we have to remember that we've got enough problems in this life as it is.
Yeah.
We have enough enemies to fight with the devil and the people who serve him, people who are enemies to Jesus. We've got enough trouble coming at us from the outside. We really don't need to start fighting amongst ourselves.
Oh, that's right. I mean, there's some lessons that we can learn today about that too.
Yeah.
As the children of God, certainly we don't need to be fighting against each other. Satan is a big enough enemy for us to fight.
So I think, Mr. Joe, I'm picking up on two lessons today, two applications today. The first one from Jephthah's story about his vow.
Right.
Number one, we need to be careful about the kinds of promises that we make to people and ultimately even to God.
Yeah.
We don't want to say something that is just more than we can give. It's just not necessary to do that. It's not like we can make deals with God and we can get God to do what we want him to do. All the Bible is telling us that it's about getting us to do what God wants us to do, not us getting God to do what we want him to do.
That is right.
So that's the first lesson.
Okay.
Now, what was the second one from that last story
the second one there from Judges chapter 12, when the Ephraimites and those of Gilead were fighting against each other, it was God's people fighting against each other. And, that's not right. That was so disappointing to God. And so even today, we need to be careful that if we are the people of God, we don't need to be fighting against each other.
That's right. We need to be loving each other and helping each other get to heaven.
Right.
All right. Well, Mr. Joe, these are two really good stories, and I'm glad we got to talk about these today. I hope that these have been helpful to you, and we want to thank you for watching this. Keep working on that memory verse from Judges 17 and verse 6.
See you later.